This month's podcast episode is very special as we officially celebrate St. Vincent de Paul Louisville's 170th anniversary in 2023. It's an incredible accomplishment. Now let's put this in context. Christmas Day was recognized as a federal holiday in the United States in 1870, almost 2 decades after our commencement. We'd love to take our guests on a bit of a history tour, especially because you all as listeners are the ones who have invested so much of your time, talent, and treasures towards this mission over the years. In order to help us do that, we have a full house today with 3 guests. We welcome our former executive director, Jim Williams, who served in this role from 1992 to 1996 and has been on the board of directors since 2010. Jim has been a Vincentian since 1990, serving in such roles as conference president and a district president. Also joining us is Donna Young, our Director of Conference Affairs and Volunteer Services, who started out as a volunteer in 1996 and has now worked with us for 15 years. And last but not least is David Neill, who joined St. Vincent de Paul in Illinois in 2009 and has served as the president of the Archdiocesan Council of Louisville since 2021 and has a lot of background on the history of St. Vincent de Paul. So let's go ahead and get started. How's everybody doing?
Doing well.
Doing good? Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. David, I'd like to start with you. You know, the origin story of St. Vincent de Paul Louisville has its roots in Paris, France. Can you share how it eventually made its way over to the Bluegrass State?
Sure, I'd be glad to, Dave. So Bishop Martin Spalding sailed to Europe back in the 1850s looking for teachers and for Catholic priests, wanting to grow the diocese of Louisville at that time. While he was there, he was in France a couple of times, and he noticed that there was an exciting period going on with what he wrote about, how he witnessed firsthand in Paris and other cities remarkable works of Christian charity performed by this society. And so before he left to come back to the U.S., he got a copy of our rule and some other literature and brought it back and had it translated from French into English. Mm-hmm. So that would have been early 1853. Mm-hmm. Took a few months of preparation, and in December of 1853, he actually announced at all the masses at the Cathedral of the Assumption that he had a gift for the Catholics of Louisville, and it was this society. Wow. So on December 11th, 1853, they met in the basement of the cathedral and started the Society of St. Vincent de Paul in Louisville.
You know, that is just so interesting when you think of it, and it crosses over and ties into not just what St. Vincent de Paul has been doing, but that particular trip also helped to spawn and grow and plant seeds for the school system.
Yeah,
for
actually.
the Archdiocesan school system. I mean, so it's all that history is intertwined, which is really interesting.
Oh, yeah. And as the society grew in Louisville, that was their first conference at the cathedral. Their second was at St. John's. And by the time they had their third conference open, they formed the Council of Louisville. That was around 1858. And at that time, Bishop Spalding gave them the responsibility of fostering that public, or the alternative to public education, the Catholic schools, providing a free education to the Catholics of Louisville, and also gave them the Catholic newspaper, the Guardian, at that time, and made them the editors of the Catholic newspaper.
Interesting. Hey, Donna, you know, we have our campus in Shelby Park, and it's focused on our mission of housing and feeding and supporting. But, you know, we also have, David had mentioned, the conferences, these groups of volunteers that come from the conferences. And today, out of the 110 parishes, 110 or so parishes in the Archdiocese, we have 27 conferences with almost 600 members, which is really just phenomenal. Yep. What are conferences? Explain for our listeners what a conference is and how are they the heartbeat of the mission?
A conference is a small group of people who have a vocation or a calling or a desire to help people that are in need. It could be with rent, with utilities, whatever. And this group of people usually get together with that purpose in mind. And they're usually formed within a parish, but we do have some conferences that are actually formed at schools, such as colleges, or there are youth conferences throughout the United States also, where they even originate in grade school, as young as that, with focusing on helping people that are in need. Our 27 conferences are really our backbone as far as helping people. They're kind of like the offensive line of a football team. They're the first people that react, the first people that try to help these people and maybe keep them from spiraling out of control and ending up down on our campus. And originally had the members of the conferences, they're called Vincentians, had they not seen a greater need, our campus in Shelby Park would never have come to be, because they were so adamant in their desire to go a step further for people that maybe they couldn't help or get back on track, that they would have a place to go for further help.
So these they're parish based,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
In the parishes, and they're separate organizations. A lot of folks don't know
Yeah.
that they're separate.
They all have their own 501c3.
Yeah.
They get to choose their work, their mission that they want to focus on. Sometimes they might focus on just helping people with rent. Others might focus on having a pantry to help people with their needs to supplement their family's food intake. So each conference gets to decide what their focus is going to be, and they run their focus pretty much as they see fit. But they still are underneath our umbrella,
Right.
And
Right.
kind of report to us their
Right.
annual report of their monies that they have taken in through the year, the monies that they have given out helping people.
Yeah, it's just for our listeners. In the last year, I'll just throw out a rough number. It's not going to be exact, but the conferences distribute, and maybe David, you can correct me here, but it's like close to $1 million.
About 1.5.
Yeah. So the good works that we do down on campus is on top of that.
Right.
Exactly.
And so the amount of impact in the community is amazing.
And how the conferences get these calls, we get all the calls from Metro, as well as people who know now to call St. Vincent de Paul when they're in need. And one of the first things we ask after we see what they want is, what zip code do you live in? And from that zip code, we go to our conference that we have in that area and usually refer them to that conference. And we have people there willing to help and get them back.
So you mentioned Metro. I think what you mean by that is a Metro United Way.
Yes.
Is that 211?
211.
The Metro. I had heard that we're
the number
one recipient
Yes.
of calls through 211, which
Yep.
again, a lot of folks don't know.
And that has been for years.
Yeah, that's amazing. Before I get on to my next question, I want to stay on this on this topic a little bit, because sometimes folks get confused. I mean, there is an order of Vincentians within the Catholic Church. We're religious.
Yes.
Religious. This organization that we're talking about, that we're all a part of, the conferences as well as us on our campus, it's a lay organization.
All lay
it's run
organization.
by lay, and so
Yeah.
a lot of folks don't realize that.
And there's over 800,000 members throughout the world.
Yeah,
Not
amazing.
only our 600 here in Louisville, but throughout the world, we're all doing the same mission of helping those that are in need.
So moving on, our conferences were primarily scattered across Louisville from the founding in 1853 and into the early 90s. And then Donna, as you mentioned, we expanded our special works to support those in need in new ways when we were gifted the St. Paul Catholic Church, the building, and the rectory. It was Archbishop Kelly at the time that made that happen. And today we have on campus and also our scattered heights housing programs about 450 folks, sometimes close to 500 folks that have a bed to sleep in every night. And so to put that in perspective, there are 180 cities in Kentucky with smaller population sizes than what we're housing on campus and scattered sites on a nightly basis. Jim, can you Can you share how that came to be in terms of the creation of that campus and why that expansion was so important to our mission today?
Sure. Well, you mentioned Archbishop Kelly, and really he was the person who started that. He was installed as the Archbishop of this diocese in 1982. And within a year, he had been in discussions with the Louisville Council of St. Vincent de Paul. Actually, one of the first things he allowed St. Vincent de Paul to take over was the Holy Name Salvage Bureau. That was like a thrift store and donation center over on Oak Street. And that became the DePaul thrift store. And so we took that over. And that was in 1983, just a year after he was ordained, or not ordained, installed.
Yeah. Right.
That same year, recognizing that there's a lot of needs in the area, the society renovated the old school building at the St. Paul campus and opened it up as a shelter to help with people who were homeless. And initially, it was for anyone who was homeless. So you had men and women. They had a room for women's beds. They also opened the open hand kitchen. The church was still being used for masses and things, so the open hand kitchen started out in the basement, where people could come who were hungry or ran out of food stamps during the month, things like that. So they had that, and they, for several years, every year or two, they opened up new programs. The next one was in 1985, St. Jude House. It was for women who were homeless and also addicted to alcohol, helping them get off alcohol. And in 1988, they opened DePaul Apartments for families, mainly single women, some single men with children who were homeless. And then in 1990, they opened Roberts Hall over at St. Elizabeth's, and it just kept going on and on. Tranquil House in 92 for with single unit apartments for men and women with mental illness who had trouble finding housing. So it kept progressing, and it's changed over the years. I guess the main thing I would point out is that the conferences, they're on the front lines providing emergency assistance, but with the special work programs at the campus, that's where the society can work with more complex issues of hunger, housing, mental health issues, addiction. So it provides a good balance.
Yeah, it does. And in the 20 months or so that I've been there on campus, the opportunity, because of what we have there, to collaborate with others, where we wouldn't maybe be able to do that with an individual conference, but to have that breadth of what you described on campus allows us as well to work with others that may be doing things that we don't do and shouldn't duplicate. In the mental health and substance use side of things, we're collaborating a lot. And now with the expansion of our veterans program, we're going to be collaborating with a number of organizations, one in particular, USA Cares, that provides reintegration services and job training. So that was wonderful that was built, and it wasn't like it was just a snap of the fingers. It just happened organically over time. And one other that I want to ask you about is the Family Success Center. You were on the board at the time when we started that. If I'm not mistaken, that was a thrift store and warehouse. Talk about the behind the scenes of getting that off the ground and the reasoning for it, because it's really a gem. It's a model of helping young people with basic reading issues and math and tutoring, and we all know that the 3rd and 5th grade reading levels, that if that if a young person is not at reading level at 3rd or 5th grade, they're going to have a difficult time in their life. And we're working to stop that.
Right. Yeah, the building that houses the Family Success Center, as you said, it had been a thrift store in the mid-'90s. They built a large new building that would have a thrift store and also a processing center for donated furniture and clothing and different things. And it was built with the understanding that in the future it might be used for programs. The foundation was built so they can make it a 2-story building later, things like that. But as the campus programs expanded and there were more children on the campus, we came to see, the society did, that the children had a lot of needs. Homelessness is very difficult on individuals, but on a child, it can be devastating. They don't have any stability. They might be on someone's couch or in a car or wherever, but they don't have a sense of belonging and everything. And when they go to school, other children may make fun of them, and their low self-esteem develops and everything. So with the Family Success Center, they can take part in normal children activities, play and things like that, but especially the gym and things like that. But with the thrift store being transferred to the Family Success Center, there's space for classrooms, offices, a kitchen, and of course the gym that can be used for a lot of activities. So that provides more normalcy, and then for the parents, that eases their mind because their child is in a safe place where they're being engaged in educational activities and positive experiences, through the summer camps and classes and outings. So it's been very successful. One thing that I think stood out was in the last few years was the impact of COVID. A lot of schools went to the remote learning, and for a child who is homeless,
Yeah, right.
and so that many of them were in danger of having to repeat grades and everything. But those who took part in the programs at the Family Success Center, their reading level, most of them, I think about 80% were close to grade level, and they didn't have to repeat grades. So it was very good effect.
Yeah, it's a wonderful play. I mean, it's very, very vibrant when the kids come after school, and most of the children that take advantage of the Family Success Center actually live on campus. So to your point about parents being able to have that knowledge that their child is in a safe place in the neighborhood, can walk back, it's just a wonderful thing for the families.
If a child has low self-esteem and everything, it's very easy to get pulled into a group, a gang or criminal element.
Right.
So it's very positive. It's a win-win.
Absolutely. So, David, you've been involved with the Society of St. Vincent de Paul in Louisville and Illinois, as I mentioned in the introduction. As the council president here in Louisville, you get to see the works of St. Vincent de Paul across the United States. Tell us about this organization across the country, the national organization, and how they are carrying out the mission of Frederick Ozanam, who founded St. Vincent de Paul in 1833.
Sure. As Donna mentioned, we have 27 conferences in Louisville, and they say if you've seen one conference, you've seen one conference, because, as she said, each conference kind of identifies the area of need in their specific geographic space. Throughout the U.S., we have more than 5,000 U.S. Conferences and about 85,000 members. In our last annual reporting, they reported 1.7 million person-to-person visits. Now, we call them home visits. We like to pride ourselves on being different than other social service organizations where there's an office and somebody comes in and they fill out a form and ask for assistance and that. As Vincentians, we go out and visit in their homes. So we do home visits. So that 1.7 million person-to-person visits, most of those took place in their homes. We provided roughly 4.7 million people over $1.4 billion in financial assistance, goods and services. Goods and services can be hot meals, it can be clothing. We provide throughout the U.S. There are conferences and councils that provide job training, job placement services, prison ministries, reentry programs for people that are exiting the prison system. Most people are familiar with thrift stores and the kitchens and all that. But then we also have areas that operate medical or dental clinics, pharmacies that provide free drugs for those that can't afford to buy their drugs, even on insurance programs. There's a disaster services corporation that's a subsidiary of St. Vincent de Paul that responds to disasters. So when we had the tornadoes in western Kentucky and the flooding in eastern Kentucky, St. Vincent de Paul was there. St. Vincent de Paul, many people don't know this, has been responding to disasters longer than the Red Cross has existed.
That's amazing.
That just scratches
Yeah.
the surface. I could go on for days.
Yeah, no, the history and the extent of which this organization is helping others, and that's just to mention the U.S., let alone across the globe, is just amazing. It's a lot of lay Catholics out there just carrying on the importance of Catholic social justice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I will add just briefly that you ask about the structure in the U.S. And so our national office is in St. Louis. If you've ever visited St. Louis and you've seen the St. Louis Arch, there's a church that sits at the bottom of that arch. And that is where the first conference started in the U.S. in 1843, about 10 years before.
Yeah, I visited. I went over there in the morning during the last national meeting, and I was the only person in there. It's a beautiful church.
Oh, it
Oh,
is.
yeah.
I mean, just an absolutely beautiful church. I love the history.
Yep.
It's pretty cool. Jim, coming back to you. We've got 10 case managers at a mental health and substance use program. It's all about our support that we provide to our clients that are in our housing programs. And I know that you have a background in social work. When you came, when you brought a lot of that with you when you came to St. Vincent de Paul, and it's blossomed and is really, quite frankly, I think one of the reasons that we've had the success that we have in getting folks into a permanent housing situation and staying, to have that kind of background. Why did you feel making sure that we provided those supports and wraparound services for individuals and families was so important in terms of their kind of journey to becoming self-sufficient?
Sure. Well, I think all of us experience some type of brokenness in our lives. And in that sense, I think we're all have the potential to become homeless or addicted or something. But for most of us, we have stable people in our lives, parents, family, friends who can teach us basic life skills and be a support if there's a crisis or something like that. But for other people, they don't have that stability, and they just don't know what to do in different situations, or a health emergency comes up, or a lack of employment, or any traumatic event that might turn their worlds upside down, and so they end up being homeless or unable to work, having a crisis. So when they come to St. Vincent de Paul, that's where we can help. We can offer food, shelter, and hope, for people who can't meet their basic needs and who need assistance in starting over. So I I think that's where a case manager or a therapist offering to be their guide can make a big difference, and even if they want to make a change in their life, it's not going to be a straight line, but with someone there helping them, they can, gradually get to where they want to be. I think the emergency assistance, offered by the conferences, the Vincentians are motivated by a spiritual call to respond to the gospel's challenge, to help people who are in need or poor and everything like that. So, but that's limited in what what it can do. So with the programs here at the campus, we're able to, meet those challenging situations and help them become more self-sufficient and everything. So,
so the seeds that you planted continue to bear fruit. Mm-hmm. And, one of the things that I've certainly learned in the time that I've been there, like you mentioned, that stability that many families have. I'll be the first to admit that, either in my own family or families of friends, they have a lot of those challenges, those headwinds, but they have the stability. Therefore, they're not unhoused. And I see the folks that are with us, it's really easy to judge without knowing the facts as to the circumstances as to why somebody has found themselves unhoused. And it's just, I think the more that we can talk about this in the community and to try to build empathy, it'd be a beautiful thing if everybody had that sense of empathy to say, I know you didn't do something wrong. I know that something happened to you. Yeah. And I'm going to help you. Yeah. And it was like earlier today when we heard, about the parable of the Good Samaritan, right? The Good Samaritan didn't ask any questions. Good Samaritan just helped the person. And I think that's a strong basis for what we do at St. Vincent de Paul. But again, I think there's lots of fixed positions and perceptions of homelessness and why people are unhoused. And I've learned that it's not because they have a mental illness. I've learned that it's not because they have a substance use issue or addiction or that they've done something wrong. It's because there's not enough housing and there's not enough stability for many people. And I don't care what anybody says to me. I know that to be true.
Yeah, for Vincentians, they don't ask whether someone's deserving or eligible for assistance.
Right.
The question on the spiritual basis in the gospel is how did I respond to someone's request for assistance? So that it's more of a internal thing. With the but the special works programs, they get into more complex issues, as I mentioned before, and that makes a big difference. Another point I would probably like to make is that in social work school, the professors would always say that, there's people who go to the river and rescue people who are drowning. That's what Vincentians do at the local level, helping people with their basic needs. But who's pushing them in to the river upstream? So what the campus, that's where the conferences and the programs are very complementary. While we're rescuing people out of the river with their basic needs, the campus programs are focusing upstream to find out what's causing them to drown, pushing them in the river, lack of housing, hunger, addictions, mental health issues, traumatic events, things like that. So by offering programs that can help people there, we're both trying to focus upstream and rescue those who are, drowning.
Yeah, that's that. I like that. I'm going to use that. Can I use that? Can I steal that?
It's taught in social work schools.
I like that. I like that. I like that a lot because, again, while we're dealing with what we're dealing with folks that are in crisis, there is multitudes more of folks on the fringe of finding themselves in the same
Yeah.
place especially nowadays with the way the economy is, the pandemic and all that messed up everything, and inflation and all of that. So it's even more important for us to double down on this work.
If you don't mind, one of the analogies that I use when I'm talking about St. Vincent de Paul and our work in the conferences is that, especially now as the economy the way it is, people that live paycheck to paycheck are one flat tire away from losing their job and losing that stability.
That's right.
And I've had 9 calls this week for assistance.
Wow.
All of them rent.
Wow.
And one of those was a car accident. She had a car accident. Now she has no transportation to work, and she's at risk of losing her place.
That's all it takes.
Yep.
There's one event like that.
I'd
Yes,
like
sir.
to add one other thing. It's not directly related, but at the time of Ozanam back in 1833, something I don't think a lot of people realize, it was less than a year after one of the French revolutions or uprisings,
Interesting.
which was about income
Yeah.
inequality. And whenever I go watch Les Mis, the musical, that's the 1832 uprising
Wow.
that they're talking about. So, and the people look like Frederick Ozanam with their coats. But when he, in 1833, less than a year after that Les Mis episode, they were debating fellow students. And these students kept saying, what's the Catholic Church doing? What are the laity doing? What are you doing? And that's what really sparked it, was that period after that uprising. It was very close, and he was very conscious of income, inequality, and when he started. But it was that
That's
was in
interesting.
the background of the start of St. Vincent.
Yeah.
de Paul.
Yeah. The context of the history is really cool. And, the history doesn't form the future.
Yeah.
Just repeats itself
Yeah.
continually. All right, I'm going to do a rapid fire here. Over 170 years, and there's lots of stories to be shared, and it's really not just about numbers for us, but the names and the faces of those that we help. Just give me one memory that sticks out to each of you, that it's made all this work incredibly important. And helping people in need. Just recount one memory for me.
My very first one, the very first Ozanam orientation we did in Louisville, we had never done any training, and we offered it, and we had over 100 people sign up, so we needed a big room, and went to St. Agnes. I used their Undercroft area, and we had a very limited budget that we had to, and the Ozanam orientation lasted the entire day, not just 4 hours like we do now, but 8 hours. And so we had a limited budget to feed everyone for lunch. So I'd worked really hard with the wife of one of our prominent business owners in Louisville to come up with a menu. And that day they came to deliver it, and they kept bringing in all this food. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I didn't order this. How am I going to pay for it? So I went up to him and I said, I didn't order all this. He said, I know, but if it had not been for St. Vincent de Paul, my family would not have eaten when I was a child.
Wow.
And I still get goosebumps.
Yeah.
That's 15 years ago, and it's still, and I thought, I'm doing the right thing.
That's a great
I'm in the
story.
I'll never forget that.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
I would say for me, we look at charity has to be infinitely inventive. There's no foreign work or foreign need in the society. We serve all. And visiting a home, and it was a guy that scraps metal, drives around in a truck picking up metal. And they needed rent assistance, lived in a mobile home. We went and visited, and the reason that they needed their rent paid was their truck was broken down. He couldn't go out and pick up metal. So that's where they're asking for one thing, but they really have a deeper need. And so we said, we'll pay the rent, but let's get your truck fixed. So we bought the parts, and we actually had a parishioner that said, I'll do the labor for free.
Wow.
So everybody works together to
Yeah.
to solve that problem.
That's great. That's a great story.
It's difficult to pick one
Right.
story.
Yeah.
My home visits are in the West End, which is, there's a lot of crime, a lot of challenges, gangs, and everything. But I learn a lot from the people I visit. The person who's coming to my mind at this moment, because of it being close to Veterans Day, is actually a grade school classmate of mine. He was drafted during the Vietnam War and assigned to night patrols. He would go out every night with his platoon and, experienced hell, literally. Only half of them survived to come back to the States after their tour. And he stayed in touch with them, but one by one they disappeared because of suicide or death or something, and until he couldn't contact any of them. And the post-traumatic stress caused him or led to alcohol. He became addicted to alcohol to try to forget, was unable to, and he ended up living in a tent by the river. And he was a really nice guy and everything, but his whole life was destroyed by that. And he was involved with programs to help, but he preferred, he couldn't get away from the alcohol no matter how hard he tried. And so he ended up dying alone in a tent by the river. And the fact that even with people reaching out to help him, they weren't able to, he remains in my mind. He's a veteran that could have benefited from programs at St. Vincent de Paul, but he never made it there.
Yeah. I can imagine that there's countless stories like that with
people
different
we're not
with
aware
different,
of
with different endings.
couldn't make it.
Yeah. So hopefully it has been the genesis of providing those kinds of services, and that next person that comes through with a similar issue will be able to be helped by the work that we do. Okay, so thank you all. I appreciate it. We're going to end, Donna, with a shout out to the 27th
Yes.
annual Santa Shop. It's right around the corner. It's going to be on December the 10th. That's a Sunday.
Yes.
This is where we provide hundreds of children with gifts, all due to the generous donations of individuals and groups. You got started as a volunteer with the Santa Shop, being, I think, your first event. And people often say, they're aware of the need, but until they see it firsthand, it's really a game changer for them.
It is. And if you can imagine, in 1996 was my first volunteer event that I did at St. Vincent de Paul. The Santa Shop was held in the open-hand kitchen.
Okay.
So now we set up the Friday before and have everything ready to go. We had to wait until lunch was over with, everything cleared out, bring in all those bags, and people would have to come in and shop, and they would wait outside on the ramp to get in. Some days it'd be rainy, some days it would be just bitter cold. But anyhow, so we've grown. We have our nice gym, and we have gone to where last year we helped a record number of children, 742 children. And this year it looks like it's going to be equally as large. We're getting a lot of referrals in, which I figured we would with the way the economy is. And people come in and they're not feeling like they're entitled. They leave in tears of gratefulness, of thankfulness. And I always tell all the volunteers that, when they leave, thanking them for their service, but also telling them to remember on Christmas morning when you wake up, you put a smile on a child's face by doing what you do. And it's a wonderful event. It makes my Christmas. And this year, it will again this year. It's just phenomenal. The people who worked last year call and say, well, I noticed that the older kids, we didn't have as many things, so my family's going to concentrate on getting gifts just for the older kids. Or I had a Vincent come up to me today and said, I have a church member that wants to help kids. What can you do with $2,000? I said, buy coats. We never have enough coats. Buy
Right.
coats for the kids.
And the right sizes, too.
And the right sizes, yeah. It's just wonderful. And for a few years, we tried to fill the needs of what the child asked for. But, we're privileged as moms and dads to get to go to the mall and get to choose the gifts for our children. So we decided that Christmas for the parents is coming and going through the gym. You see moms holding up T-shirts or a pair of pants saying, or this is the color my child likes. And that's their Christmas. That's their fun.
Yeah, the volunteers help them to work through that and say, well, maybe I got something over here that you could use.
Yeah, I mean, it's just wonderful. And Toys for Tots, Cletus Evans has partnered with us. This will be the 4th year now, and he provides wonderful toys. So we have enough toys. This year, Holy Trinity, we never have enough basketballs. Sporting goods are a thing that really go quickly. The conference room is now full of basketballs. I mean, people in Louisville are so generous, and it's a wonderful event. And I do have sign-up links, and Tony is going to post them on the web. So anyone wanting to sign up, we have we're open from 10 to 6 on Sunday, December the 10th. I only ask for 2 hours. If you can volunteer 2 hours, if you can volunteer 1 hour, half an hour, it'd be great. I just like people to volunteer so they can get the feeling of helping people. You leave feeling good about yourself.
So the link will be on www.svdplou.org. And it's easy, but once you see it, you'll see the time slots, and you can select the time slot.
And also there's a link to sign up if you'd like to gift wrap, because we usually gift wrap for the moms and dads if they want us to, or we give them wrapping paper. And then on Friday, December the 8th, we will set all the tables up. So there's a link if you'd like to come and help us set everything up.
And I like how it's described. It's a mini mall.
Yeah, mini mall.
And once you volunteer and you get in there, you may sign up for a two-hour slot. But once you're there, you don't want to leave.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like the toys. There's some toys in there I'd like to have right now.
Yeah.
I really do.
Those Nerf guns that came in today are pretty neat.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
So thank you all. Appreciate you all being here. Great, a great session for our listeners to learn more about St. Vincent de Paul. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.